Thank you for giving this opportunity to share with you our journey, our shared journey, as we are looking at it from Orwell's perspective. I was delighted to see the presentation of GMC, which connects me very deeply with Orwell from where I am coming. And to see that shared aspiration for something profoundly longing in our hearts, finding expression in so many different ways, it is deeply, deeply moving. Thank you. We heard about social stock exchange and democratization of funds. And end of the day, everything boils down to people. Transformation of people. And that's the core question we are dealing with in Orwell. How to transform human nature. And this has become more and more critical in today's world, where I would like to take you through a brief overview of what happened in the last 300 years, where we were driven by the power of thought, rational intelligence, scientific discoveries that has utterly transformed the world. And what we are now going through is, in a way, a culmination of that stage of development, the age of reason, coming to a point of deep crisis. The very power of thought that has led us to this point is now becoming obsolete right in front of our eyes, as the machines are able to think far better. So what are we going to do if we are not required as thinkers, as visionaries, as creators, if machines are going to do it? What is our role? And more people are looking at this explosive development as an existential crisis or a potential breakthrough towards an unknown future. And the world is changing so rapidly. We are compelled to transform individually, collectively, as well as all our institutions, whether it is educational institution, administrative institutions, all must undergo an explosive change that we cannot even imagine. And our role in it as thinkers are getting challenged. This is where the predicament is. Transforming our nature, what lies beyond thought. Because the power of thought that has led us this far has created a system of civilization that is way too complex for it to comprehend or even to manage. So there is a widespread destruction, confusion, mental confusion, and growing mental disorders, because for every narrative there is a counter narrative, and human mind is unable to know what is true, what is false, what is fake, and the mental reality is in a way collapsing. And we need another way of knowing the truth, because the mental truth is not helping us. It has taken us to a certain extent, but now it has come to a point it has to undergo a radical transformation. This is where the human nature needs to undergo transformation. This is where the founding philosophy and the vision of Orwell come into picture, which I would like to share with you. And here, these two people, Sri Aurobindo and the mother, the visionary founders of Orwell, the very vision they brought in is this: that humanity is facing an evolutionary crisis. And what appears to be climate change, economic turbulence, or all kinds of collapse that is happening all around, these are symptoms. Behind it, there is a massive shift happening in consciousness, and our mental consciousness, in terms of its rational intelligence and capacity, is failing miserably, and more thinking is not going to take us forward. We need another way of being. A new being is birthing in us, and how do we move towards that? And what is the potential hidden within us? How do we move towards that new possibility hidden within us? And it is an evolutionary possibility. This is where education comes into picture. When I say education, I'm now referring to a lifelong transformative learning. Usually when we think of education, we think of schools, but it is utterly insufficient. The entire population needs to be educated in a new way of opening to a deeper creative possibility hidden within them. So it is in this context of shifting from mind to supermind. This is Sri Aurobindo's fundamental proposition, that mind, as we know it, is giving way to a higher faculty of knowing and being and doing. And that is currently in the process of disruptively emerging in the world, and what we see is the old systems collapsing and something utterly new emerging, which our mind is not able to conceive how it is operating, how it is emerging, how it is organizing its emergence. And this is the context, birthing of a spiritual age unfolding on earth, and whether we understand it or not, the forces are in motion. That's what the masters are saying, and it is for that reason Auroville was set up as a laboratory to see how human nature can be transformed. So in that context comes evolution of our human mind. Mind is the current highest faculty that is available to humanity in its evolutionary emergence, but we need to now transcend what we have developed. And that is the framework for education, that evolutionary framework, how to evolve into next stage of our own possibilities that are hidden within us. In that, the very first stage is purification, and it starts with body-mind connection, where our body, which is a material thing, brings its inertia, its tamas, and the food we eat brings immediately its influence on the body, on the mind. Mind is heavily influenced by the body, and it is critically important how to train the body so that the mind can function well within that framework. Just like the hardware need upgrade so that a new software can be brought in. And this context demands practices at 3 domains: food, exercise, sleep. These are the 3 things that directly affects the functioning of the mind, and therefore, these are 3 areas where food is not just for health and fitness, but also what kind of food will illumine the mind. It is from that perspective the choice of the food matters, the choice of the exercise matters, awakening of the body consciousness so that the light of the mind can flow through the body. So that is first layer of body training. And then comes, of course, the senses. Mind uses our senses to experience the world, and unfortunately, the trouble with the senses is that it brings desire because the senses are seeking pleasure. In the process of seeking pleasure, there is craving, from there comes addiction, and guilt, shame, all kinds of degeneration that happens to the senses. Therefore comes the fundamental requirement for training the senses. Training of the senses, each sense. Unless we train, for example, our hearing capacity, for example, if we are to enjoy a fine classical music, unless we have trained our ears, we cannot really enjoy. There is tremendous delight available as arts, literature, poetry, but unless we train our faculties, we cannot enjoy them. So there comes the training of the senses. Then we move forward, then comes the energy that drives the mind as well as the body. The power supply that runs software as well as the hardware. And some people are of low energy, some people are of high energy, and those who are low energy need to get boosting their energy. Those who have high energy need to find how to balance the energy. That is otherwise has a tendency to move towards all these challenges of heightened tendency for ambition. From there comes the restlessness, aggression, violence, all that comes with this intensity of energy that is building up in the individual that flows out. It's a wild horse that some individuals opens to, and that makes them powerful, but power by itself is insufficient. There comes the need for training of the energy with its equality, breathwork, adventure, team spirit, the whole range of training required for energy. How to source energy, how to balance the energy, how to transmit the energy, how to channelize the energy in a creative way. This has to be basic for education for everyone. Then, of course, comes our heart, the emotions. And emotions are seeking love and affection, and that brings depth of relationships and richness of connection. But there is a challenge where we develop attachments, and attachments comes into insecurity and breakups and all the manipulation that comes with attachment, insecurity, etc. And sadness, suffering. And this thing colors our intelligence. Our whole mind gets colored by the emotional layer that is turbulent. Therefore, the training of our emotions to be calm and wide and receptive so that we can enjoy deep and rich positive emotions without corrupting our clarity of the mind. So all these are layers that are required in the purification of the mind. And there comes equality, music, art, poetry, serving others, all that are to help the heart to purify and open up to a greater richness of experience. And now we move on to training of the mind proper. Mind, when it is purified from the body and senses and energy and emotions, then it can operate freely in its own domain of thought and ideas. And here comes curiosity. Every child is spontaneously and naturally curious. Unfortunately, our education system is looking at children as buckets, empty buckets to be filled with information, and kills their curiosity. Once curiosity is gone, then the self-drive is gone. Once the self-drive is gone, there is no capacity for concentration, because concentration is the capacity of the mind that enables every individual to pursue whatsoever they want. And if the curiosity is gone, then concentration is gone, and then you have ADHD. That is the resultant where we end up with. And of course, when we have these faculties developed, naturally comes the ability to observe not only the physical dimension, but also the subtler dimensions, how to observe sensations, energy, emotions, world of thoughts, and abstract world of ideas. That ability comes when the capacity for observation is developed. So when it comes to education, we are not looking at the content that is fed into the mind, but what faculties are developed, what capacities are developed, what are there latent, how to be trained them. Then comes the memory, comprehension. These are already well known, so I will not go into it. And here comes imagination, wideness. I would like to touch upon wideness and suppleness. Wideness is when the mind is curious about wide range of topics, not just into an area of specialization. A mind that is broad and wide and loving its learning, joy of learning and spreading wide its wings of knowledge. Then comes suppleness. Suppleness brings the flexibility to the mind. A mind that is open to all kinds of ideas, ability to absorb, be supple, flexible, to change its position, to look at something from all kinds of positions and angles, so that it is not attached to any particular window of perception. It is free to fly in the world of knowing. And then comes ability to synthesize, because here comes, in our world we have all kinds of contradictory, paradoxical fields of knowledge that doesn't agree with each other. Each and every individual must learn to synthesize all that they know, their experience, around the center of their being, or the highest ideal they conceive, they have experienced. Ability to synthesize the mind. Otherwise, the mind gets fragmented, fractured, and you have pieces of knowledge unorganized. So helping a mind to organize itself, and then comes the power of formation. This building is here because someone formed it in their mind. Out of the formless, you are bringing out and birthing things that are not there in nature, and that is the immense power of the mind to give form. And whole cities can be formed. So training the mind to bring into these levels, this is where the creative individuals are emerging. They are really the wealth of a society. A creative individual is the baseline for any type of growth in a society. But the challenge is all these are instrumental layers. They don't necessarily work together. They pull in different directions. As a result, we experience internal fragmentation. And this, the mind by itself cannot resolve. The mental will is unable to know the complexity of our instrumental layers and bring them together to synthesize. This leads to the challenge of internal fragmentation, particularly in a society, in the world where mental education is prioritized and other parts are not touched in the education. Result is untrained parts pulling in different directions and the mind unable to comprehend what is going on and getting lost in confusion. This is where we transcend this level to go beyond this level. Like here, up to this point, we are looking at the power of thought, rational intelligence, its will. Beyond this, we cannot go. At this point, yoga begins, where pure inner silence has to be brought in. The thoughts must come to an end. Ending of thought, beginning of seeing. Beginning of seeing with clarity, undisturbed by all the lower instruments and its confusion. So the training of the mind begins here to transcend the normal layers, to go beyond into domains that are much subtler. And here comes the discovery of the true self. When we are establishing inner silence, inner stillness, wideness, calmness, and concentrate in the heart region, this is where the discovery into the deeper layers opens up, and we discover our true nature. In Buddhism, perhaps, I guess you would call our true Buddha nature. In our language, we would call the soul or the psychic being. That's an integral yoga psychology term. And that's what leads to individualization. The true individual emerging from within. And that emergence is what reveals your swadharma, the dharma of the individual, your sole purpose. This is not a mental construct that gets revealed from within as you dive deeper into oneself. It is not only knowing, but it is also an immense power that gets released from within. That is the inspiring source lying within, like a sun radiating from within. So enabling individuals to come in touch with their true self that is beyond these instrumental layers, that enables their radiance, their creative force to be liberated. And that is where the individualization of the individual and discovery of their true purpose in the world emerges in that process. And this is also the source of universal love and delight, gratitude, generosity. That is hidden within, uncontaminated love that spreads out freely, generously towards all, and the sense of oneness that comes with it. That is hidden behind the veils of the mind, emotions, sensations, energy. So diving deep and discovering that is the very foundational requirement of education across all the ages, zero to the end of life, and even learning to die consciously so that you can continue the education to the next birth. And from there comes the next higher levels of development, where dissolution of the ego and merging with the infinity that is emerging for the individual as a spiritual potential that very few actually explore those domains, which is limited to monasteries, ashrams, but now it has to be brought into the wider world, because without that larger expansion and freedom, we cannot build higher ranges of the mind. And this is where discovery of the higher faculties beyond thought, beyond rational intelligence, we can discover. Thank you. Time. Okay, comes into picture. So not only we are discovering that higher possibilities, but also bringing that into the mind, into the heart, into our whole instrumental layers so that they undergo transformation. And this discovery of the higher ranges and bringing them down into our instrumental nature is the higher level of educational work that is awaiting us. And in that, I'm just broadly saying there are layers to be discovered, what we refer to in our psychology as the higher mind, illumined mind, intuition, overmind, supermind. These are some of the possibilities well mapped in the integral yoga psychology. I will not go into it. And from there comes our evolutionary transformation of human nature, where the material and spiritual are brought together. As Divyanshi mentioned in her presentation, our career itself is fulfilled by the spirit's longing and its expression in the material nature. And we are here to bring that spiritual light into matter, and that's our educational framework. And this is the framework for the practices for various layers of our instruments and our inner nature for an integral development. So the practices are all broadly categorized into these layers, and then comes the emergence of the diversity in unity and the divine life on earth. This is the vision that is driving Auroville, and this is the broad framework we have for Auroville, that we are looking at how to operationalize it, how to design a city designed for this purpose, an economic system designed for this purpose, an education system that is designed for this purpose, starting with no private property, no ownership over anything, all collective. And it's an experiment. It's a lab for transforming human nature. Thank you.